The Criminal Investigation Squad from Public Security has a lot of dark secrets. I discovered this rabbit hole when I wanted to investigate Jane Doe. Jane Doe has an obvious secret to her that I just had to figure out what it was, which sent me on a spiral to investigate every single public security officer. So I'm going to go over each character and what their significance is, and I'm going to save Ching Yi for last because she has a lot of interesting information that I would have not known otherwise if I hadn't done the research that I had. I'm not really going to go over Zhu Yuan. She probably deserves her own video and own character breakdown, but she's probably the less suspicious of all the characters. At best, she's a really good officer that's good at everything she does and just overlooks her own health from time to time. At worst, she's a perfectionist that may need some help. Since she's already out, she has a lot of character details that really deserves her own video or short, which I'm not going to go over now. Jane Doe, on the other hand, was the most obvious character that has a lot of deeper meaning, especially when it comes to her name. My sister was actually the one to point out Jane Doe's name is just a placeholder name. It's basically not a real name. This is a heavy implication that Jane Doe is hiding her real name. Between that and the release teaser, where it showed all the individual factions and the members that are in it, and Jane Doe is just kind of casually to the side, kind of lumped together with the public security officers. And when I saw that, I started making connections. Oh, she's an undercover cop for public security. That's what I thought at first, but then there were some things that gave me doubt. For one, the website doesn't list what her specific faction is, which that might just be Hoyoverse trying to throw us off. They do this as well as in the 1.1 program. They're like trying to shroud her in mystery, like, oh, she's in a mysterious faction. We don't know who she's working with. Trying to make it vague, like she's not working with the current gang she's infiltrating, nor is she working for public security. She's working for someone else altogether. But the fact that the story quest is called Undercover R&B gives everything away from me. Like, undercover R&B. Oh, well, obviously she's undercover for someone else other than the gang that she's infiltrating. Another interesting fact about Jane Doe is that she's a rat. And rats are also rodents, and rodents are also related to moles and... Okay. Hoyoverse loves their puns, don't they? Anyways, we're moving on. My last speculation about Jane Doe, it has a lot to do with Seth. Jane Doe being the rat that she is, that means she has to be in disguise a lot, do a lot of deception. It would seem to me that would not sit well for a character like Seth. Seth is obviously a dog. You know, if you didn't see the tail, I could see why people think he'd be a cat, but he's obviously a dog. And looking at his community page posts and shorts on Zenless Zone Zero, you get a brief idea of what his character like. He's a very loyal, very honest person that just wants to do his best, and as well as to live up to the standard of his older brother. That kind of honest character is probably not going to rub well with Jane Doe, and might honestly be the cause of Jane Doe fighting the rest of the public security faction. And if Zhu Yuan knows about her undercover situation, this might pose a problem for her. She might be trying to protect him from the gang while also maintaining Jane Doe's cover. It's going to provide for a very interesting situation. If Jane Doe is a pattern, then Hoyoverse might like putting puns or significant details into character names. And Seth itself, the name itself, I really like it. Well, you know, I guess not everyone is perfect. What this will mean for Seth, he has an older brother and wants to live up to his expectations. That jealousy may overcome him, and I don't think he'll necessarily do away with his brother in the future, but it's definitely going to be a point of conflict and probably heavily related to some character story or main story in the future. With that said, there wasn't much else on Seth that pretty much breaks down everything about him, which only leaves one last character, Ching Yi. If the last two characters were a pattern of how Hoyoverse likes to determine the characters, the first thing I'm going to look at is the definition of Ching Yi. And this was really difficult, especially since it's a Chinese name. The meaning of the name, or even the word itself, can be different depending on the context of the situation or in the way that it's said. So I ended up getting lots and lots of different definitions for this character. But the most common one was camaraderie, it's a weird word, and friendship. At least the word Qing, and then Yi being kind of like straight to the point or forward or sometimes even rude. And this goes in line with the personality. From what we've seen in the interlude chapter 2, Qingyi is a very straightforward personality. She doesn't hesitate at all to call out Zhu Yuan's sycophancy for a certain officer. At the same time though, she does this out of care for her friend. She wants to call out any potential conflicts within Zhu Yuan before it becomes an actual problem. And even though Qingyi has a very prominent opinion on Zhu Yuan's stance, she still gives Zhu Yuan the option to prove herself to the officer that she looks up to. Of course, Zhu Yuan doesn't go to prove herself to the officer and instead does what she believes that the officer would do in a time of crisis, and the story goes forward from there. The point is, Qingyi is a very straightforward friend. She's not afraid to warn you of dangers, but she's also not going to stop you, which is what makes me really like this character. And probably why I spent more attention on her, that as I looked into her more and more, I've noticed some interesting details. Obviously, she's an automaton robot, but not only that, she may be one of the oldest automaton robots. Qingyi is not the first robotic character we've seen in Zenless Zone Zero. Tin Master and Elfie are also robotic characters that you can interact with, but their personalities are far less robotic. They're a lot more natural. Qingyi obviously has personality traits as well. It feels far more primitive, which suggests that she's an older model. Now, maybe that's just chalked up to coincidence and she just has a robotic personality. Well, that is until this most recent patch when you find Zhu Yuan and Qingyi talking to each other, and you find out that Zhu Yuan specifically says that she has memory banks dating all the way back to old Eridu. Then if you could look at our images on the community page, they say some very interesting things. One of them being Qingyi cleansed by the sands of time, suggesting she's been around for a while, not only possesses a wealth of worldly wisdom, but also refined her combat skills. And that's not the only one. Needless to say, I feel like there's more than enough evidence to suggest that Qingyi may have been one of the first AI models to actually take up individual sentience, which might spell a lot for her character story in the future. And her character story is finding an old missing bamboo. Having a hard time fitting that into the theory I just put together. Maybe there's something I missed in this image. Cleansed by the sands of time not only possesses wealth of worldly knowledge, but also refine our combat skills. Learning this is... Wait, what?